So welcome back to the channel. A very new concept we're going to be introducing is the weekly Portcast, or play on words there for podcast, or fortnightly. I'm not too sure in which way we're going to order it yet, but we've got Luke, we've got Ethan, we've got Elliot, and we've got James. And hopefully this is going to run smoothly. It's going to go well. And hopefully we don't have too many arguments on the stream and on every episode. So we have got 3 topics, which are pre-season, Accrington preview, and preview for the season. The first one we're going to get into is pre-season, and basically talk about, well, Elliot's gone, he should be back very shortly. Talk about pre-season. We'll start with Luke. The results are across the bottom there, Luke. When we went into pre-season, we lost quite a few players. We lost quite a few players during pre-season. How do you think pre-season went overall?
No, I don't think it was the best. You see, we're up against teams that realistically we should be beating, but then we get put against teams like Swansea and Bristol City, who absolutely battered us. Yeah, I don't really see the thought process about having a go against teams that are just levels above us.
Yeah, Ethan, it definitely seems something, weird how you can play teams like Dundee, Pontypridd, Sheffield, and then Yeovil to an extent, and then get put against Swansea, Bristol City. You should expect pre-season to be something where, it's the same sort of level all the way with maybe 1 or 2 teams higher. Do you think it's, it was a bit odd that we have those games against Bristol and Swansea, knowing there's a high chance we would get those big scores against us?
Oh, yeah, definitely, especially with the score that did happen. Of course, 8-0 and 5-0, you're just going to end up losing confidence. And I suppose it's a pre-season game, but yet again, you're trying to find where the quality is and trying to build confidence. But if you're getting drubbed every week, then there's not really a point in bothering us, is there, really?
No, I mean, we'll go to you for this, Elliot. You obviously, after the pre-season said that we can't judge anything before a league is before a ball's kicked in the league, but does some of those results in pre-season there worry you to an extent, or is it just it's pre-season, it's fitness?
Well, when it came to the Dundee game, no one was complaining. Like, yeah, they're below us, but there was signs there was like good plays, and then the manager explained the other two, the Swansea and Bristol. He explained the reason for those were to give them a test. That's what happened in pre-season. You don't want to keep playing teams below you, because if they're getting used to a team that's not, at your level, then it's like, well, what's the point? They're going to go into the season expecting it to be all like that. If you're playing teams better than you, then you up your level a little bit more. And yeah, if you get splashed, you get thrashed. But in the real season, that wouldn't happen, as we've seen. We've beaten Leicester at this point. Just because we lose 5-0 to Swansea in pre-season, if we play them in the cup doesn't mean we won't beat them. It doesn't really mean anything, I don't think.
Yeah, James, is there anything that, like, personally you would take away from pre-season? We've seen that against Cheltenham on Saturday, which, we was all in attendance for. We actually played some really nice football, and probably some best football that we've seen at Rodney Parade for a long time. Does that give you a bit of confidence, knowing that was the last game before we kick off next Saturday at Accrington?
Yeah, I did give a bit of confidence. So that we had some nice football that we played on Saturday. Yeah, obviously, I know the goal scoring we need to work on, but we didn't have Bogle, so maybe goals can come from him. Maybe.
Yeah, Ethan. Like I said, whether it's a fitness test, whether it is you look into the results, obviously, do you agree with? I know it's controversial, but do you agree with us playing teams like Bristol and Swansea? Elliot mentioned it just then that sometimes you've got to play teams better than you to test yourself, but a lot of people are on the other side of the fence that playing these teams and get battered is just going to ruin your confidence. What's your thoughts on playing teams championship? Because obviously we've got a good relationship with Bristol and Swansea.
Well, it's always good to be versing high opposition, because obviously you can see how you face against them, but also it's to do with the confidence. Like, if it's a close game, you can come out of it thinking, oh yeah, we've challenged them there, we've put in a good shift, we've got close to scoring a couple of goals. But based off the performances we did have after watching the Bristol game, you come out of it with no positives other than, oh, we just run round for a couple of minutes. But I do agree that is good to challenge the players once in a while, but maybe only have one game against high opposition and have a couple against low opposition, because obviously you can build the confidence from there.
Yeah, Luke, the Bristol City and Swansea games were not exactly like one at the start of pre-season, one at the end. They were, I think, either back-to-back or I think they had one game in between. I can't quite remember. I think it was Pontypridd in between.
Yeah,
or
they were back to
yeah,
back.
yeah, back-to-back. So 13 goals conceded in 2 games. And ultimately, the Bristol City one lost Joe Daye's place in the Newport squad. He was sent on loan pretty much after that. Do you think having those back-to-back killed the confidence, losing 5-0, and then you've got to try and play against probably one of the best championship players in Alex Scott?
Yeah, I think if you lose 5-0 one week against a team in the championship, and then you have again a different side to maybe not on the same level as like Swansea, but I just don't see the point in playing championship teams in the first place in pre-season, whether you have your best players or not.
Yeah. Elliot, do you think we can take anything from pre-season? Obviously, there was signs, I'll be honest, there was signs in that Cheltenham game, but do you think there's some things that Graham will take forward from the pre-season going into next week at Accrington?
Yeah, I think he'll take the fitness improvements, because last year toward the end of the season you could see that we were getting very leggy within an hour of the game. You could see we were getting very slow. What was it? I think it was like there was one of the games where we were 2-0 up and we lost it 3-2 toward the end of the game, because it was just very slow. They got very tired. Whereas in pre-season, it's looked a lot more for the whole 90 minutes, especially Cheltenham. Cheltenham was a whole 90-minute performance, really. Yeah, toward the end of the game was a little bit scrappy with the defending, but that's just because you made all the changes. I think the Cheltenham game shows the progression of pre-season. And yeah, we lost 8-0, but I think that game, it may have just been a little bit of running around. I think that whole 90 minutes of running around has helped their fitness and helped get used to it. So we'll have to see what Accrington brings.
Yeah, James, like Elliot mentioned, when you're chasing around for 90 minutes with the quality that Bristol City had on show, it was always going to be hard. It's going to be hard for any League Two team to keep up with that. And I mentioned Alex Scott. I think he was absolutely superb that day. But does the lack of goals in pre-season worry you? Again, a lot of these are, subject to change. We could turn into, a very good attacking team in the season, but based off pre-season, barely any goals. We were getting beat 2-0 in a few games as well. Does that worry you, or is it a case of it's pre-season, it's fitness, and there's a lot of changes in those games?
We were playing a lot of young lads in pre-season, so obviously they haven't had the experience of scoring like in a proper game, so maybe that was one of the reasons that we couldn't really score in pre-season.
Yeah, personally, I don't take a lot out of it because I think Bogle didn't play that much in pre-season. I know he didn't play the Cheltenham game. There's a few others that I know that he didn't play as
like
well.
2-3 games, I think.
Yeah, so having him as the main striker, we'll talk about the striking situation in a minute. But I'm going to move on to the next topic then, and it is the league season does start on Saturday. Ethan and James are going to be going to that game, so we'll get some content on the channel for that. So we'll go to them first because obviously they are going. First of all, we're going to start off with match day prediction, then we're going to move on to our preferred starting 11. So I'll go to you, James, first. What's your prediction for Accrington on Saturday?
Well, considering Accrington just lost probably their best player in Ethan Hamilton, I'm going to go for a 2-1 County win.
Nice. Ethan?
I'd say 2-0 just based off of how weak their team looks at the moment. It's a lot of young lads, but we've brought in some decent quality players, so I think we can get a 2-0 win over there.
Yeah, Luke?
I don't want to be negative all the time, but I don't think we're going to win our first game away. I think no matter who you're playing away, it's always a really tough game. So based on that, and I don't think we scored enough goals so far. I know pre-season and whatever, but I don't think we scored enough. So I think, and Omar Bogle is not fit still. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 loss.
1-0 loss. And Elliot to finish off?
I'm going to go with a mix of in between. I'm going to go with a 1-0 win because, like Luke said, we haven't scored enough goals. But I think defensively against Cheltenham, we were quite good. And I think defence in pre-season, the 2 games against the higher opposition show different story. But I think the defence has been relatively good in pre-season. It's just been stupid mistakes at the back. So apart from that, if we can cut those out against Accrington, I think a 1-0 win is coming our way.
I'm going to go 1-1 personally. I think there are goals in Accrington, but there's also lapse in concentration in us, especially in the back line, which we've seen probably from a set piece, knowing our luck. Zanzala is still at Newport. Yeah. Right. We're going to go into starting 11 predictions then. So obviously, take into account players that are fit. We're going to start off in reverse order this time and start off with Elliot. Give us your starting 11 prediction for what you would go with, not what Graham would go with, what you would go with on Saturday.
I think that Townsend will keep his place, or should keep his place, 100%. McLaughlin would start a right wing back, considering we literally have no one else to play there apart from Harrison Bright, who's a young lad. Centre backs, probably, I think the only 3 fit are Clark, Jameson, and Delaney. I don't think Drysdale's fit yet. Left back, I would play Adam Lewis again. He performed really well in his first game back. Midfield 3, I would go with the same as against Cheltenham, Wildig. I can't remember the names now. Wildig, Morris, and who was the other one?
Bennett. Scott Bennett. Yeah, I'd play Scott Bennett in there. And then the front 2 of Palmer Holden and Evans if Bogle's still in fit. Yeah, Luke, would you make any changes to Elliot's 11, or would you pretty much stick with what he's gone with?
I'd say the same, to be honest.
Yeah, Ethan. Yeah. There we are. Yeah, I'd probably go with the same. I think if Bogle's fit, Bogle comes straight into the team alongside Palmer Holden. I think both of them could actually create something, up front together this season. I think that they're going to have that little bit of partnership with the striker who's more physical, win things in the air, with Palmer Holden, running off him. So yeah, that's what I personally would go with. Ethan, what 11 would you change anything from the 11 that we've said, or would you just keep that the same, and especially with you, James, as well?
Yeah, I mean,
I keep the same team personally.
Yeah.
I think the same team, but switch Harry Charsley in for Bennett and go more attacking, because how well the defence was on last Saturday against Cheltenham, I think we could be fine with playing more attacking against Accrington. So maybe take them to sword a little bit.
Yeah, because Bennett and Morris, I've not seen much of Bryn Morris, only really vaguely on Saturday.
Cheltenham probably have a better midfield than we do, and Accrington probably don't. So maybe we could play Charsley as well.
Yeah, maybe I'll put Charsley in there instead of Bennett, because we've seen that Bennett does get a bit leggy in midfield, especially when he's going to be coming up against a midfield when it's a competitive game. I think the thing is with Cheltenham on Saturday, I thought that they were very, they pulled out of 50-50s and stuff. They didn't want to chase everything because they knew it was pre-season. But I think Accrington, despite them probably lacking the quality that Cheltenham have, they probably obviously are going to try everything. It's their first game of the season, home as well. I think they're going to, really go for it. And obviously they're going to, because it's the first game of the season. We're going to move on to the third topic now, which is the season ahead. This one is going to obviously take a large chunk of the podcast. I'm not going to mention anything myself, because I have got my own video coming out at 5:00, which is going from 24th to 1st in the league. We're going to start off with James. First of all, we're going to go where we think we're going to finish. Just a quick fire answer, and then we'll go more in depth. So where do you think we're going to finish this season?
I'd say 15th.
15th. Elliot?
I've gone with 11th.
11th. Ethan?
I personally say 14th.
And round off Luke. We've got no one saying relegation yet.
Luke.
It's all about to change, lads. Sorry, boys. I think we're going to finish either 22nd or 23rd. I
This
feel
guy
like
is the most negative fan I've ever met.
I feel like we've lost some good quality players, and I'm not sure whether the boys that we brought in are the same level that we've lost. But I think we might survive it on the last day or the last few matches, because we always have a part between February and the end of the season where we just seem to be awful. It literally happens every single season, and it always seems to cost us.
Well, yeah, they always say that is literally the most important time of the season. Everyone says the start of the season or the Christmas period, but between February, March to May is the most important thing, because you can't win the league in the first 3-4 months of the season, but you can definitely be in a real relegation scrap in that early. We've seen teams in this league like Scunthorpe, we've seen Rochdale do it, where they've had such a horrific start to the season that it makes it all but impossible to get out of it, even though there's so much football to be played. We're going to turn attentions to like cup competitions and stuff like that. First of all, we're going to go to you, Luke. With the way the finances of the club are at the moment, do we take cup competitions really seriously? There's £10,000 per win in the Papa John's Trophy. Do we try and take some of these competitions serious, to try and earn enough revenue, physically possible, because that's where the club is at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. And I think even though they're not the most important of games if you think about it, but for someone like our teams that are in like League Two, for example, it's just money at the end of the day. And I think with whatever's been happening over Newport, which not everyone knows the full story, I'm not going to go into it because
I don't even think we do, to be honest, but carry on.
I think if we have the chance to get some extra money, we just have to take it seriously. Yeah,
let's go to you, Ethan. We've been a team in the last 5 years, especially, that have always had a good cup run or not had a good cup run. It's always been anticlimax, but we've been to the 4th, 5th round of the FA Cup. We've gone deep in the Carabao Cup, and normally when we get knocked out, the old saying is, "Oh, now we can focus on the league. Now we can go back to league football." But realistically, if we lose in a cup, that's a huge chunk of money that we've potentially lost out on. So I think fans will be a bit more not angry, but a bit more upset about losing, in cup games. I don't know if you agree with that.
And yeah, you want to be able to win the cup games. Every game you go into, of course, you want to win. But I think the main priority for us is making sure we stay up in the league. But making sure we get through the cups is also important. But we'll just see what happens, really. So, yeah.
Yeah, Elliot, this could be a make or break season for us. A lot of fans are really worried that if we do go down, the implications that may have. I know you've gone 11th with your prediction, and obviously I respect everyone's opinion, but is there any part of you that thinks that, if we start slowly, like teams like Scunthorpe, Rochdale have done in the past, that it's going to be hard to get out of, or do you put faith in Graham Coughlin to do the job necessary?
Obviously, yeah, if we have a bad start, we go on a bad run of games like we did beginning of last season, then yeah, it could be in a situation where we find it hard to get out of. But I have faith in Coughlin and the boys, because he's shown it last year that he was able to get us out of a tight spot. I think when Roby got sacked, there was a lot of people who were expecting us to get relegated, even with Coughlin, and we were relatively safe in the end. We were we ended up 5 points off of the playoff spots in the end. That's what I mean. Yeah, we lost some quality in that. But if going back onto the point about the cups, my only thing with the cups is, Luke especially, if you're saying that we're going to get relegated, why are we putting emphasis on the cup competitions? What's the point in getting the money for the cups if we're going to get relegated and lose all of it and basically go out of business anyway? The cups won't save us in that sense. So that's all. That's the only thing I'd say. I think if there's a threat of relegation, we don't worry about the cups at all. We focus on staying in the league. That is the most important thing. Obviously, if we get the cup competitions as well as staying in the league, that's all well and good. But staying in the league is the most important thing for Newport every single season, not getting the cup competitions.
Yeah, I have noticed that we have got Christian in the back. If he's still backstage, I'm not too sure if he's back in. We'll have to wait for him to possibly come back in, and there he is. We'll bring him in now. It didn't even pop across the bottom, so we'll get his thoughts on the first few topics, and then we will bring in the further topics that we're going to talk about. So first of all, Christian, I didn't notice that he was backstage. We did mention as topic one about pre-season. What was your overall thought on pre-season? We mentioned, do you take much from it? Losing 8-0, 5-0 and things like that is, of course, obviously confidence killing, but what's your thoughts on pre-season overall?
A learning curve, in my opinion. Every team has to go through a learning curve, and I think that 8-0 loss against Bristol City might have taught Newport County something or something like that. But the game against Cheltenham really did show what we are capable of, especially this season under Coughlin, and hopefully bring some good results this season.
Yeah, we all answered the question that do you take much from pre-season? Losing to Bristol City, Swansea, going into those games, it was highly likely that was going to happen. I don't think, well, apart from, people that generally thought we would, I don't think anyone thought we was actually going to win those games. But losing to Sheffield, losing to Yeovil, those are results that shouldn't happen. Do you take anything from pre-season, like the results that we lost? Are you worried? And the games that we won, well, only 2 of them, but the games that we did win.
I wouldn't say I'm worried. I wouldn't say I'm worried. I'd say that I'm more confident in this season, I think, especially in the young lads upcoming from last season and this season, like the likes of Ryban Rai, Seb, Palmer Holden as well,
Yeah.
and all these guys. I think they would give us a good chance, I think, in, at least a mid-table finish.
Yeah, we mentioned as well, obviously Saturday is coming up, Saturday away at Accrington. We did obviously do our predictions and starting 11 predictions for that. In terms of the score prediction, what are you going for Accrington away? Obviously, I know they got relegated last season. They've lost some big players. How do you see that one going?
I think, in my opinion, Coughlin's going to put up the same 11 that he did against Cheltenham.
Yeah.
But that obviously we'll yet to see and stuff like that. But as for my score prediction, I would say about 2-1. 2-1 County.
To County. And the final one before we can bring everyone in at the same time was looking ahead to the season, the season ahead in terms of how you think it's going to go, where you think we're going to finish.
As I said, mid-table, around 12th, 11th.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, that's exactly what another deluded Newport fan said. 11th. I'm joking. We're not getting into that. Yeah, in terms of like the cup competitions, I asked everyone vaguely their thoughts on it. We'll come to you now. Newport, it's without a doubt that we are struggling for money. I think that's pretty obvious to everyone known. Do you think that we should take the cup competitions a lot more seriously because of the money that's available? There's £10,000 if you win a game in the group stage of the Papa Johns. That something like that is, you can't really sniff at when you're in our situation.
Yes and no, I would say. Yes, because it's, helping the club financially. But no at the same time, so that we focus more on, to get a good spot in the table.
Yeah.
And to not get relegated. So keep our heads up at what cost.
Bit of technical difficulties there.
I'm in my dad's van at the minute, right? No, that sounded wrong, didn't it? I'm in work. Let's just say that.
There's plenty of ways that could be wrong, man.
Let's move on. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
That's why I was like, do I continue with that?
He's Bob the Builder today, man.
And I was like, no, let's not continue with that. I'm in work at the minute. However, I told the boss what I'm doing and things like that, and he was like, yeah, that's fine.
Right, moving on to the last topic then. I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure when we're going to be doing the next podcast, so I'm going to talk about this now. In terms of like the transfers in and out, because I don't know when we're going to do the next one. If it's going to be before the deadline day, probably will be. In terms of players let go, players brought in, I'm going to go to each and every one and give your overall thoughts on it. Like I said, a lot of this I'm pretty much not going to give my own thoughts on it. It's going to be down to everyone else on the panel. Luke, players in, players out, in terms of obviously that ratio of the players that we've let go with the players we've replaced. How would you sort of see that?
Well, we've lost some big players. Everyone who knows me know that obviously Norman was one of my favourite Newport players. He always has been since he joined. 100 appearances in just 2 seasons, I believe, is just incredible. I don't think we're ever going to find a right back as good as Norman. So I think he is one of the best in League Two and probably should have gone up to League One.
Yeah.
Even though we've brought in some strikers, some young players, midfielders, I still think we could do with another striker who's got a little bit more League Two experience than what we have. Zanzala is good on his day, but he's always injured.
Yeah. So, like I said, the players that we've let go, do you feel like we've necessarily replaced them well enough, or that we've, brought players in to improve the squad? Because the way I based off a window is, have we improved from last season, whether that be, players that we've let go that maybe needed to go, have we improved from last season?
I don't think we have, to be honest. We lost a really good defensive 4 or 5. I think it's going to be hard to get used to not having our like Farquharson in defence, because he always just used to mop everything up, and Mickey leaving as well, such an experienced player at 33 years of age. I think it's going to be hard to find someone who can step up to that sort of leader role, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Elliot, we've brought in Adam Lewis, who obviously doesn't need any introduction. Hence why I really didn't introduce it on my video, because we've seen him last season. But one that I'm really excited about, and one that really excited me on Saturday, was Seb Palmer-Holden, on loan from Bristol City for the season. And it just seemed like he wanted to chase everything down. He wanted to get on the end of everything. Do you see him having a breakthrough loan spell like we've seen Ben White here, Scott Twine, etc., etc.?
Yeah, I also watched his welcome interview, like when they brought him in, and he just seems to speak the right way. He spoke with such passion for the club, even though he's on loan. It really excited me of what he could do, and as we saw against Cheltenham, he ran for every single ball. He scored as well. And I think he'll have a good season. Whether he'll have a Semenyo type of loan spell, I don't know if he'll be that successful, but I think he'll definitely score quite a few goals for us.
Yeah, and obviously as a striker, you want to hit the ground running as soon as possible to score on your home debut. That gives you all the confidence. Chris has put a chat in here. We will take questions from the chat. He says, would you sack Coughlin if he has the same start as Robury did last season? We'll just cut away from the transfers one for a moment and go through everyone to give their thoughts on this, because it's only fair to answer questions from the chat. Just a quick fire question. I know it probably doesn't deserve a quick fire answer, but Luke, if we get into October, November, and we're dropping points left, right, and centre, do we say to Coughlin, this is only going to go one way? Because he's kept Bristol Rovers up, he's kept Mansfield up, but in the second season they got rid because he looked quite dodgy, and it seemed like it was a 1-year fix. So what would you do in regards if that situation comes? Because it could easily happen.
I think what happened last season, we can never have that again. We were losing to teams like Crawley, Rochdale, teams that are woeful. Not being like any rude to them, but it was just terrible. So yes, I think it would be the right thing to do.
James, would you pull the plug on Coughlin if what happened with Robury happens again this season? Because that won't be a change of manager. Then that'll be something wrong with the club altogether. Because we can clearly see Coughlin is a good manager, and I'm not going to say tactically astute, because that left me exposed last season with Robury.
Well, I'd keep Coughlin in there if we did the same as Robury, because obviously Coughlin's had the experience of keeping teams up, as obviously Robury only had a job at Cardiff's academy.
Yeah, Ethan, that's obviously a good point to come across. We got rid of Robury, rightly so, because it was only going bad with James Robury, but I don't think there was any sort of vision in it getting better. I just couldn't see a win coming. I couldn't see a good performance coming. And when we did put in a good performance, we got beat. So, would you pull the plug on Coughlin if that happened with what happened with Robury?
I think you'd have to say yes, but if you look at this league compared to the last season's league, this league is a lot harder than the last year's league. So it's going to be really difficult to try and improve from last season, depending on seeing as we lost players and the addition of better teams as well.
Yeah, well, you'll see in my prediction video that, not very often you get two promoted teams from the National League that are tipped to potentially win the league. You don't normally get that, and the two teams that have come up are extremely strong. We're going to move on to Elliot then to finish off this little mini question, because obviously this wasn't in the script, but if Coughlin had a bad start, is it a case of, you know what you're doing, we're just going to keep faith with you until it gets, impossible to keep you?
I'm gonna go with yes. I wouldn't get rid of him because he's got the experience. He's already setting action into trying to get the club in a better place as to where it was when he came in. He seems to really care about the club. He shows passion for the city. All the players that have come in and said the only reason they came was because of Coughlin and Harry sold the club to them. So I would even go so far as say if we got relegated, and if the worst case scenario happened, we got relegated, I'd keep him to get us back up because I trust Coughlin in the sense that he's got the experience. Obviously, I don't want us to go down, obviously, but if we're in December, we're in the relegation zone, who better are we going to get? Who are we going to get in that cares about the club, that will actively try and make it better? Because it's not, if it goes bad again, it's not up to the management or the club or anything, or the team. It's deep rooted into something wrong inside the club, not Coughlin. So why sack him? It will just be the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, and I actually really do like Coughlin as well. One of the previous questions from Chris was, what's your thoughts on him? I just think he knows what he's doing, and like Elliot said, he cares. Moving back on to the transfers, as we got interrupted by that question. Adam Lewis, Ethan, his last spell on loan at us last season got cut short in February due to a bad injury. He still kept going to games, away games. Said that he absolutely loves Newport. Bit odd on the announcement from the Nando's going in there with a full kit, but we'll move less on that, the better. Was Adam Lewis, as soon as it become available that Adam Lewis could come back for a year, was it just an obvious choice to make?
Oh yeah, 100%. He was probably, in my opinion, one of our most creative players last season. And when we did lose him, unfortunately, you can see where the creativity was lacking on the left-hand side. Don't get me wrong, Aaron Lewis was decent on the left, but of course, with Adam Lewis being a left footer, he provides so much going down the left flank.
Yeah. In terms of bit of a fun one, we're going to go through potential flop transfer of the season and potential hit of the season, and then we'll wrap up the first episode. We'll start with you, James. Who do you think could be a potential real hit for the season, and who could be a real flop signing?
Well, we'd have to go with Palmer Holden, and flop. I'd probably say. Well, people said that Morris, apparently wasn't good at Grimsby last season, so maybe Grimsby fans could prove us right. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't want to mention Josh Sebri. I know he is a young defender, but I think you've got to give him a year to potentially, settle into. He's never played at EFL level, which I said in my video. He has no idea of what the EFL system is like, where all of the other signings have. Or even Nathan Wood is he's played alongside James Waite. He knows exactly what Newport's like. He's an academy graduate from County. Moving on to you, Luke. Potential flop and hit of the transfer window.
Here we go.
Potential flop. I think I might get a bit of hate for this, but Palmer Holden, I feel like he looks good in pre-season, but we've seen strikers look good in pre-season and then go into the league and not exactly be as good as all the hype about them. So I think I wouldn't go as far as flop, but I think there's going to be a lot of over expectations on him, man. And I think the one that's going to do the best, Adam Lewis, I know he's already been here before and we saw how good he was, but I think this time he'll just be even better because he knows what sort of level you have to be to play at Newport or at League 2 level now in general.
Yeah, I am going to take this. I think I'm going to go, before we move on to the final two, I think flop of the season, I'm going to agree with James. I'm going to go Bryn Morris. I think he comes in with a lot of experience. He comes in with a lot of EFL know-how, but I just don't think he's going to be. It just reminds me so closely of Scott Bennett, and I just think he's going to get lost in a lot of midfields this season. Yes, he's got a good shot on him, but I do think that there's going to be a lot of midfields that we come up against that, are going to be more physical. They're going to be more quick on the floor, and their passing is going to be a little bit better to, play around him. In terms of hit of the season, I'm actually going to go for the player who played as captain on Saturday, Ryan Delaney. I think he's going to, really be a good stalwart in that defence, coming in from Morecambe, a team that got relegated, but we still picked him up and we saw something in him. When a team gets relegated, sometimes you can, hide away from them and just, walk away from a potential deal if they, were so bad in a relegated team. In terms of the last two, then we'll start off with Elliot and then we'll wrap up with Ethan. Flop and hit of the season.
There's two I'm trying to decide on with the hit. I don't want to go with the obvious ones that everyone's gone with. So I'm deciding between Jameson and McLaughlin due to how I think they performed. I'm going to go with McLaughlin just because I think he can play on the right wing back and he can play midfield if we need him to. So I think McLaughlin will be one of the surprise ones. I think a lot of people aren't sure about. A lot of people will be like, is he really good enough? From what we've seen of him, I think he'll do a job anywhere he plays. So I think obviously Adam Lewis is an obvious one, but if we're going with one that's a little bit obscure, I think McLaughlin. With the flop one, I agree with what we're saying about Bryn Morris, but I think he will do a better job than someone like a Scott Bennett will throughout the season. Seb Hammerholden has potential too, but I'm going to go with one that I really want to do well, but I just can't see it working out just because of the level he's come from, and that's Nathan Wood. I really like him as a guy, as a personality. I really like him, but I just don't know if he's going to be good enough for League Two. Like Will Evans has found it hard struggling. We even shifted him out to wing back last year because he wasn't good enough as a striker. So I don't know. I don't know about Nathan Wood. I want him to do well, but I'm not sure.
That out of all the signings, that's the one that I'm begging for it to work because he was in the academy, got released, found his footing in the Welsh League and a very successful Penny Bont team, reaching European qualification, and then it feels like all written in the script for him to come back to Newport, the team that he started, and sort of revive his career in EFL level. Because like I agree with Elliot, and I think everyone will agree, he's the one that I desperately want it to work for. We're going to go to Ethan, and then we're going to wrap this first episode up. Hit and miss or hit and flop of the season, if you like.
Well, coincidentally, I've gone for the hit of the season being Carl Jameson because I don't know what it is about him, but it gives me the vibe of Priestley Farquharson with his pace and the way he comes forward with the ball. And flop of this sounds dodgy, but I'm going to go with Matty Bondswell just based off of how we brought in Adam. I can never see Matty Bondswell starting over Adam Lewis in any sort of way. Maybe in the cup games, but I can never see Matty Bondswell replacing Adam Lewis unless he comes on leaps and bounds. But I guess we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, that's actually a difficult situation. We've put ourselves bringing in two left backs. They're both on loan because we could be in a situation midway through the season at Newcastle. What happened to Harry Lindley, Thierry Neves, Chan Kazimba, where Newcastle say, well, you're not using him. You're not going to put him ahead of Adam Lewis. Well, we'll just recall him. And then, we've not seen potential of Bondswell at all if that happens. Because I agree with you. I don't think he's ever going to get above Adam Lewis if they're both fully fit, fully ready to go. I think there's always a no-brainer between him and Adam Lewis. Anyway, that's where we're going to wrap up the first episode. We will go through everyone's thoughts again for the Accrington prediction, as that was obviously deeper ago from the podcast, so everyone gets to give their final preview before Accrington on Saturday. So we're going to start off with Luke. What is your prediction again for Newport Accrington?
1-0 to Accrington.
James?
2-1 Newport.
Ethan?
2-0 Newport.
And finally, Elliot?
1-0 Newport.
I'm going to go 1-0 Newport. I'm going to stick with it. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the podcast as always. Go on.
Get rid of him. He's too negative.
Well, we'll see. We'll see throughout the course of the season.
Being realistic.
We might have to get rid.
Get rid of him.
Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Like, share, and subscribe. Episode number 1. Let me know in the comment section down below as well what sort of topics you want us to discuss on the next pod. It'll probably be Accrington, Charlton, and maybe a preview to Doncaster. I'll speak to you in the next one. Up the county.
Other county.
Hello, boys.
What the fuck is going on here?
What's up, lads? We are the Newport N.